how I learned. I went to this ESL class and they had this book called, I don't know, Side by Side or something. And I was learning through those books, but it's really about scripted conversations. So let me test you. So how many of you learned English as a second language? Yeah, yes, yes. So in the textbook, what are you supposed to say when somebody says, hello, how are you? I think this first time we wrote the textbook, everyone else translated to their language, and we're all learning the same thing. So when somebody says, hello, how are you? You're supposed to say, fine, I'm fine, thank you, and you. Did you learn it like that? And then when somebody says that, what do you say? I'm fine, thank you. So there's a sequence of hello, how are you? I'm fine, thank you. And you, I'm fine, thank you. I learned it, memorized it, and I thought I got it. So then I went out to the regular street marketplace, so to speak, and I started to practice. So I went out and I said, hello, how are you? I did not ever get the answer, I'm fine, thank you, and you. And I thought to myself, what is wrong with these people? They followed the script and they didn't. And even worse yet, when you are meeting somebody for the first time, I'm expecting you to say, hello, how are you? People didn't say that in my high school. They said weird stuff like, hey, what up? And like, what? Who? What? Or many other expressions that I did not learn in school. So it took me quite a while to actually get used to this thing about learning a new language. And then there was a moment though when I realized that finally, hey, I think I got some handle on this language, this English thing. And it actually happened. And before I tell you how it happened or when it was, I'm going to ask all of you to share your experience. 1 minute, okay? And please whisper so that it smiling and all those things. And it was interesting because usually I will miss the time to laugh a little bit. Everyone is laughing, like, ha 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 ha. I was to laugh. And also some other awkward moments when I was not fluent was somebody saying something and I'm being polite, smiling and I'm nodding. And then I realized that she actually asked me a question. Those awkward moments? So one day I finally realized that I was becoming fluent. I wasn't fluent yet, but I was becoming fluent. That happened when I was watching TV. I was watching TV. When I first came here, I never found those TV shows funny at all. Like Friends, I'm like, what's so funny about it? I get the content, but I did not find it funny. All of a sudden one day, I was watching this TV show, I'm like, oh my gosh, I just got it. That cultural code that I realized, actually, that's funny. So that was one moment. A second moment was when I got the humor code. Oh, I'm maybe becoming fluent. Second sign came to me when I was making some sarcastic jokes. It's not just a joke, but I was actually able to build on what you're saying and make a sarcastic comment. And I'm thinking, hey, I'm pretty good at this. You're pretty good at it. So I realized that I was becoming better and better. But what I realized was still it was able to read textbooks, but I was getting much better in this interaction with other people. So not only I was getting the content of what people were saying, but also the intent behind it. So I am able to actually understand what you're saying and also understand your intent. But still, it was kind of difficult for me to have that conversation on the phone. I don't know if you found that when you're first learning a new language, much easier to talk to someone in person, but on the phone is quite difficult. Maybe because you're missing all the social cues that you can read so that you can respond. So that was very interesting. So not only I was understanding the content of it, but also I was using the language. And there came a time when I realized this thing called language is using me. I don't know if you ever had this experience of language using you. Okay? So one example that I can tell you is I have this really well-meaning colleague that I work with Monday mornings, and I usually go to work early because I'm excited to work, actually. I love my job, so I'm there very early in the morning. And this colleague of mine, she comes over, and then she looks at me, and she says, "Are you okay? You look tired." And then all of a sudden I realized that's who I am. Because she said that. I was not tired until she said that. And then all of a sudden I'm thinking, do I kind of look weird? Is my makeup off? I mean, why is she saying that? But probably you've had those experiences when you were in conversation with somebody, and the more you talk with that person, hey, this is getting louder. You feel it? Yeah. Okay. And the more you have conversation with a person, either you become depressed, energized, or somehow you become tired, exhausted. You know those people. Please do not name any names. Don't name any names. But could you actually quickly check in with your neighbor? I'm a neighbor because you have a lot of people to fall in love with at your table, so please switch partners. And here's your next quick check-in. Quick check-in is when was the last time you had a dialogue with somebody and that was so uplifting and energizing? Okay? Could you please quickly check in with your partners? 90 seconds. noticed today, from this morning, is you seem to know each other really well already, do you?
Yeah.
Ah, I see. Okay. This is very interesting. And also, I'm sure you have some people here that you don't know yet. Okay, this is pretty cool. So, as you talked about that last conversation that was uplifting, I want you to think about what it was that really gave you that energy, if you call it, or that kind of oomph, in a way. And for me, it's interesting because the way that we use language is, in a way, it is supposed to be motivating us to do something or think about something differently. I'll give you an example. It's Black Friday, isn't it? Yesterday it was. It's the whole Black Friday weekend. When you see their commercials, they say it's blowout sale, door crashes, and you have this idea of people lining up like the lineup we had in the morning, and door crashes, and you're thinking, oh my gosh, I have to be there. Or sometimes then you go beyond it, you're thinking, no, I'm not going to be there, but I'm going to shop online. Interesting way of using language. They do not tell you it's on sale and this is the price. They usually have the regular price was this. But now it's this. You somehow feel that need to get it. All of a sudden you think, I think I need it. I didn't know that I needed it until I saw it when I need it. And it happens in the medical field. Sometimes we use some very sensitive terms, such as it used to be called mental retardation. And they thought, oh my gosh, we're not going to use that word, so we're going to call it delay. Intellectual delay. Developmental delay. And then they're like, no, delay is not a term. So it takes that cycle every now and then. They're like, no, let's call it developmentally challenged. How about that? And then also they developed it further to developmental disability. And nowadays they call it differently abled. So, I don't know how many of you actually watched the movie, I think it's Layman.
Oh, yeah.
And there's a scene, and also, I also have experienced firsthand that I was talking to somebody who has developed developmental disability at the time, because now it's a different label that we have. We were talking about something, and he said, Haesun, I'm a changed man. And I said, sure you are. Tell me more about it. And he goes, I used to be called mentally retarded. But now I know, and then I was something delayed. But now I am differently abled. Same person, different labels. What's funny is he feels different. Same person, different labels. He feels different. That's what matters. Another medical example is, and we will hear about the actual process of it, there's this process called MAID, Medical Assistance in Dying. And we call it that specific terminology, I think, I'm looking at it from a sociolinguistic perspective, because we don't want to call it suicide. Because of all the history that word has. Behind suicide, there's a lot of baggage behind that word. So we don't want to use that word. So we call it medical assistance in dying, which is actually more accurate. But there is a specific reason why we choose specific terms. So I'm pretty sure you can think of other things, but let me give you actual research that was done. And it's not just in our everyday, life, like when you're shopping or when you go to a hospital. Here's a research that was done in, actually, it was in the US, I forget which city. And this was done in an emergency setting. And what happened was patients will come in and sit down with their physicians. And physicians were doing the interview as they do usually. And what happened was at the end of the interview, they will ask one question to conclude their interview. So patients will come in and they're doing all these different things. Then the patients are asked, first question from the first group, is there anything else that you would like to talk about today? Patients in the second group, they were asked similar question but a little bit different. they were asked, is there something else that you would like to address today? How many of you heard the difference between these two sentences? Okay. First group was asked, is there anything else? Second group was asked, is there something else? It sounds like what difference would that make? Well, let's have a look. What difference would that make? What happens is, let's look at it from sociolinguistic perspective, like from English as an English. When I was learning English, here's a grammar book, grammar. So the rule says, if somebody's asking you, and if you don't have it, then you use the word any. Example, do you have money? No, I do not have any money. You hear the association. Do not usually have the association with the word any. But if you have something, then you usually use the word some. Yes, I have some money. You don't hear the word I have any money, or I do not have some money. Sounds weird. What happens is we are associated to think any is associated with not, some with presence of something. So guess what? When you are asked, do you have any other issues? No. Would you like to, do you have some other issues that you would like to talk about? Yes. And the result is really astounding. Result is not just 10%, 20%, it's 73% of the time. People who are asked, do you have something else to address today? Their unmet needs. Patients' unmet needs reduced by 73%. And what we mean by unmet needs is the things that they're kind of struggling with, that they wanted to talk to the doctor about, but they didn't get to address with the doctor, is unmet needs. And that is one of the biggest kind of problems in the medical field, because patients feel that I have all these unmet needs and I see the doctor, but still it's not met. That can be reduced by 73% by changing half a word from anything to something. And what's interesting is, does that mean that you need to actually spend more time with the patient? No, actually. It was not significantly more or less. That's interesting, isn't it? So if half a word can make that kind of significant change, think about it. And we call that phenomenon social construction, because language is inherently social. Maybe it's actually invented so that we can communicate, so that we can connect, and then sometimes we can control certain things. If you live by yourself, you may not need to use language, but we need language so that we can do that. And so in a way, language is inherently social. Then what we need to do is, let's see how or what happens in a dialogue. By the way, is this useful for you? Yes. Cool. All right. On Saturday morning, you might as well just do something useful. So, when I looked up the word dialogue, I was quite surprised to find the differences. Because when I go to work, even after learning all these different vocabularies and all those things of English, I realize that some people are using some terms in its not intended way. Let me give you an example. How many of you have discussions at work? Some sort of discussions at work. So the rest of you, what do you do? And how many of you actually have dialogues at work? Dialogues, okay. So some of you are thinking, what is the difference? And here's how I see it. So because I learned English as a second language, I have a habit of going back to the root of the word. So when I looked up this word, discussion, it was interesting. There are two parts in it. There is this part and cushion part. And I thought that's interesting. And I looked up other words with the ending cushion. And I found some words that end with cushion. Give me some examples of words that end with cushion.
Percussion.
Percussion. Percussion. All right, cool. Yeah. Cushion actually means to process of discussion is you have an issue and you break it apart. You analyze it, you do something to break it apart so that you have parts. But I'm thinking, why would you have parts? So that what? And discussion is used to make decisions. So of course I looked up the word decide. And then the design has two parts in it. Decide. What other words in English do you know that has side in it? Hey, here's what happens when you have a word side in it. That actually means to kill. Has a side kill pests. And stuff. So decide actually means to kill other options so that you can make a decision. You see, discussion, we broke into different parts. You have 5 different parts, let's say. Now you need to make a decision, meaning out of 5, which one are we going to survive and which other ones are we killing by just the act of choosing this one. Decision making is discussion based, problem solving, so that you can make a decision, meaning you kill all the other options but leave with one best option. Interesting process. So that is what discussion is and does. And what about dialogue? Well, now you're thinking, what parts are in the word? Okay, dialogos. And it has some other root words too. Dialogue has 2 parts. It's not it's dialogos. Many times people think, oh, dialogue must mean 2 people talking. Actually, it's not it's dia. So what other words that you know that it has dia in other than diamonds? Diagnosis is a very interesting thing, okay. Sometimes you have this diaphragm or dagger or something. That means to go across or through. And then you have the word logos in it. And logos means words. Very interesting. Dialogue actually means we use words. And there is this part through. So it's understood more like meaning making. We are co-creating meaning using words. So we are negotiating meaning. That's what dialogue is and does. So what does dialogue do? Well, you may start with one option, but through the dialogue process, you generate more options. So when you're having a dialogue with somebody, you might come up with one thing, but by the end of this dialogue, you may have 5 different ideas. Opposite of decision making or discussion. But somehow I noticed that people were using S as the same thing. They meant to say discussion, but they want to beautify the whole pain of discussion. So they say, let's have a dialogue about it. So if I go into that conversation thinking we're going to have a dialogue, and then you keep killing my options, I'm like, what is wrong with you? Because that's not how I understand dialogue process. But you use the word in a way that beautifies the process, but you still do something else. There are so many examples at work like that. Is that clear? So I work and I teach coaching as a collaborative dialogue. So coaching, counseling, and all those other helping sort of conversations are intentional process, not just the dialogue, but dialogue with direction. So what I teach people is how do you shape your dialogue so that there is an intention? What kind of options are you generating when you're having a dialogue with somebody? You know that person that you were just talking about, the person who really uplifted you after the conversation? How do we do more of that intentionally? So I study the whole process of dialogue and what happens. And here's one phrase that I love. What we do in a dialogue is we do this. We listen, and then based on what we heard, we select what we're going to respond to. And then based on our selection, the dialogue gets shaped, the direction is shaped. And I'll give you one example. In a professional conversation such as a physician, coach, or whoever, teacher, sometimes people open their conversation this way. They say, how can I help you? What do you think about this opening, by the way? How can I help you?
I don't like it.
You don't like it?
No, I don't.
Okay. Are you sure? No, I'm kidding. If you hear that very ordinary phrase, how can I help you? It's loaded with assumptions. What are the assumptions that you hear in that phrase?
Well, the person offering has more to offer.
Yeah.
Like in a position of superiority.
How can I help you? Well, obviously you need help. And obviously I can help you. Because I know I can help. And the power difference you see. And also I'm assuming that you might know what's wrong with you so that I can actually finally help you. I mean, you can play, you're sarcastic about it, but how can I help you is very ordinary and people use it all the time. Loaded with assumptions. Some of you might be like, okay, well, I don't care. But somebody like her, she might be like, I don't like it. So what happens in your relationship is, depending on how you use language, it may impact your social relations. So what do we do? Another example is I get clients and they talk about their topics. And I say topics, not their problems or issues. I want to be very specific that it's their topic. All of you have a coaching topic. Maybe some of you might actually have some issues, but all of you may have a coaching topic. Very different way of approaching it. So I had one client who talked about he is struggling with addiction issues right now, and my job was to respond to that sentence. I am dealing with addiction issues right now. One sentence. Okay? My job is to respond so that I can build on what he said. If you could pick one or two words out of what he said, so that you can build on it, which words would you select? Could you quickly, last connecting with your partner, say, please be gentle and kind to each other? 90 seconds. Which word would you select from this one sentence? I am dealing with addiction issues right now. Go ahead. 90 seconds. Your assumptions are different. I just told you the same sentence, and everyone is responding differently. And it's not because you didn't hear it, it's because your assumptions are driving it. So if you chose dealing with, good for you, I mean all the answers are good answers. Dealing with actually assumes that you're doing something about it and let me know the strategies of what you're doing. Good assumption. If you have addiction as your choice, hey, you care so much, so you might actually say, history of addiction, when did it start, what is it about, and how much, and when does it happen? Okay. Maybe it's for doctors to know. And my question is it is it necessary? Maybe. But the person might find it intrusive. I don't know. In a medical setting, it may be fitting, but in a dialogue as a coach or as a friend, I'm not sure. Because what will happen is after you talk about your addiction and how addicted you are, you might actually feel even more addicted and less of a person. I don't know what might happen. But that's where the conversation may go if you choose that word. If you chose I am dealing with, oh, you are dealing with it, so you're doing something about it. And you might be thinking, okay, is that his issue or is that his family issue that he's dealing with? Is there somebody in his family that has addictions? Then you might say, you say you are dealing with it. What do you mean by that? Is that kind of like what you are dealing with? Is that somebody else's? Depending on your curiosity, you might choose that, and your conversation will be built based on that. Now, some of you said, now. Very interesting choice. Out of all the words, you choose now or right now. I'm dealing with addiction issues right now. Interesting choice. One of the professors in the coaching program, actually, that was his choice. And we asked him, why did you choose that? What were you thinking? We asked. And he said, because when he said, I am dealing with addiction issues right now, I assumed that he had somehow dealt with something else in the past successfully. So I wanted to ask him about the past successes. Because right now he's dealing with this, but in the past, what have you successfully dealt with? That was his assumption, and that's what he asked. And sure enough, the conversation was built on the client's strength and past successes. It's just a one-liner, but there are so many opportunities for you to respond to. And it's your job to select responsibly. And how do you select? Well, you select based on your curiosity. So then, what do we need to do is probably I want you to remember one thing. As you leave here, and hopefully as you especially look at your family members that you think you know really well, or your old friends that you think you know really well, and you know how they have their old tapes that they play and they turn it on, you're like, heard that before. I want you to do something a little bit different. When you listen to other people's talk, especially those people who are very familiar to you, I want you to do something slightly different. Don't tell them that you're doing this, but try this. In your mind, focus on what you're listening for. Okay? You're listening with very specific focus. What is important to this person is your direction. What is important to this person? And then see what happens. And when you hear what's important to them, see if you can repeat it back and see how they respond. Because your mindset will drive your curiosity. And your conversations will be built on your curiosity. And it may make a huge difference. That is the small difference that might make that big difference. Anyway, I'm so happy to be here. And thank you for inviting me. I really hope that you do something small as a small experiment when you go back. And thank you so much. In closing, would you please turn to your neighbor who really helped you through this whole process and